What's funny is I'm wearing his helmet. So I'm fighting Takeda Shingen dressed as Takeda Shingen. There was no Bushido Code. Being with Senna Rikyu, even digitally, is just blowing my mind. Samurai video games have become the incubator of the samurai image in popular culture today. And you can embody the idea of being samurai through these video games. The samurai really do exist in a world that is a mix of reality and myth. They can block shots. Well, that's unrealistic. Hi, I'm Joe Nickols, project curator of the Samurai exhibition at the British Museum. Today we're going to be exploring the use of samurai in video games. The first game we're going to play is Nioh 3, and this has just been released, so we visited the Koei Tecmo team for early access. I'm in the training rooms now. I've never played anything like this before my whole life, but when I'm in a game, I want to win. And I don't know if I can win this. Equipment, yes. Weapon. Wooden sword. I want a metal one. Equip. Where's all I've got. When you're a young samurai, you're given a wooden sword to start training, and samurai were known for training for hours and being very delicate with each other, because even a broken bone was a potentially life-threatening injury at this time. And as you grew up, you would graduate to sharper swords. The graphics on this, like the set design, is incredible. Oh my goodness. I will not be defeated by you. One of the things about samurai training is it's about bun and it's about bu. Bun is culture and bu is warcraft. So you would do sword training, you would do archery, you may do a bit of sumo, but then you'd also do calligraphy, flower arranging, painting. You'd have to master a lot of different elements to become a proficient samurai. So in this game it takes hours, but in reality it takes a lifetime. Although during the Edo period it is essentially a status group. It is a class of people, so you were born into a samurai or you were not.
The winner of this bout is Lord Takechi.
In Nioh 3, we play as a fictional descendant of Tokugawa Ieyasu, who was the founding shogun of the Tokugawa period, who brought peace to Japan in the 17th century. But in this game, Japan is being corrupted by an evil force that is bringing yokai and demons into reality. And we have to time travel through different eras in order to prevent this new evil world from taking hold. Japan is filled with stories that combine myth and reality, and particularly samurai legends. One of the early stories that exemplifies this is Shuten Doji, which features a real heroic samurai, Minamoto no Raiko, who is employed by the imperial court to go and defeat an ogre who is terrorizing Kyoto. And so there is this historic tradition of fusing fantasy and reality together. And I think a lot of these video games that do that continue this tradition. These aren't just modern developments of technology, they are continuing a legacy of fantasy and reality in the samurai context. Oh my goodness, I've got an opponent. Hold on, where's R3? This is terrifying. Just die!
This one is an easy one.
Okay. This is going to be a long day for everybody. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Already, I'm so excited to explore the various locations. Having been to Japan many, many times, I really recognized those places, despite none of my visits to Japan including any attacks. There were no ninjas dropping down from ceilings, but apart from that, it felt very, very accurate. So we are in the Heian period. It's a very important part of samurai history. It's really their origins. The emperor disbanded the standing army of Japan. So the Heian period is when samurai began to emerge as mercenaries. At the moment, I am in the snow, and I've never thought of the Heian period in the snow. I don't know why. I think it's because the Heian period to me is so fueled by literature and culture, and a lot of that literature and culture is to do with seasons of change and flux. So I mainly think of the Heian period during springtime or autumn, particularly for like looking at the moon or enjoying cherry blossom. And the Heian period is actually one of my favourite periods. If I had to go back in time anywhere, it would be to the Heian period because it's got high stakes aesthetics. So in court culture, it's a lot to do with what you wear and you want to wear the most appropriate and elegant clothing. And if you don't, there's going to be a problem. And you can see here in the game, the people that I'm fighting now with these incredible hats, these eboshi, they are dressed like courtiers. They look like they're wearing hitatare. And hitatare are some of the most formal garments that you can wear. During the Heian period, they were actually seen to be quite informal, but they became the most formal garments during the Edo period as well. So that's what daimyo would have been wearing when they went to visit the shogun. The hitatare was also worn under armour. So when you're putting on your oyoroi armour during the 11 and 1200s, that's the kind of outfit that would be underneath. One of the reasons for this is that samurai are always trying to be courtiers. They want to be seen as this refined, elite figure. And so they often depict themselves in paintings as courtiers. And they are trying to mimic their cultural and historical relevance, which the samurai, as these sort of upstart mercenaries, don't have. Fell off a cliff. I was too busy thinking about life in the Heian period. This yokai corruption mirrors how a lot of Japanese tales often portray political chaos as literal demons and monsters in a sort of allegorical manner. And the Heian period is when a lot of these demon legends and these mythical creatures really begin to populate Japanese folklore. Ooh, who has appeared? Oh, the Tengu! The Tengu are very interesting. These are incredible spirits. And one of the most famous warriors from this period is somebody called Minamoto no Yoshitsune. And Yoshitsune is actually trained by the king of the Tengus. What's just happened? This looks like a Tengu. Oh, this is Minamoto no Yoshitsune. I'm doing it now. Minamoto no Yoshitsune was a key warrior during the late 1100s, during the Genpei Wars, and led a huge battalion of people during the battles of Ichinotani and the Battle of Yashima.
Do the battles last longer than that?
Shut up. No, yes, they do. Historically, these stories that combined reality and myth were not only to entertain, but they were also filled with moral lessons to teach people different ways of interpreting the world and the ideas of right and wrong. So my character has time travelled, and I'm now exploring an era of intense internal fighting in Japan known as the Sengoku period, or the Warring States period. Oh my goodness. So what's so exciting for me is seeing the interpretation of these incredibly famous samurai warlords. In the samurai exhibition, we have a section all about Takeda Shingen, who's one of the most famous warlords of the mid-1500s. And so I'm very, very excited to come across Takeda Shingen. And Takeda Shingen is famous for having this incredible helmet bedecked with white fur. And so I want to see what that looks like in battle action.
Are you ready to defeat him?
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to defeat... Oh my gosh! I'm going to do my best to defeat Takeda Shingen. But what's sad is I want to be Takeda Shingen's friend. I would rather be on Takeda Shingen's side. By the time I complete my mission, Takeda Shingen will be good again and will be my friend. That's Honda, isn't it? Yeah. There are certain helmets that are incredibly famous. So just like Takeda Shingen has one with white fur, Honda has this deer horned helmet. So this game is incredibly detailed. You sort this out for me? The map, the setting, the atmosphere is incredible. And if you know your samurai history, the people that you get to meet, it's incredible. It's like meeting your heroes. And they are even better than I ever imagined. The Takeda symbol is here. We're close. Here we are. Back in control. Wow. So here's Takeda Shingen, looking very serious. Takeda Shingen is famous for being known as the Tiger of Kai. So in this game, Takeda Shingen's guardian spirit, who is becoming evil, is in the form of a tiger. And I really like those little details. And you can see on Takeda Shingen's neck, there are these prayer beads. That's because later in life, Takeda Shingen retired to a monastery and became a monk. And so now, Takeda Shingen and this spirit are going to fuse. You can see how they keep all of the elements that make Takeda Shingen so iconic. This white fur helmet, the prayer beads, the armour on the shoulders. It's so amazing, the design, the level of detail that they've gone to. One of the things about all of these characters, all these historical figures, is that they were turned into prints during the Edo period, and they were so widely distributed. So people would be able to recognize these figures just from their stance, where they are set, what battle they may be in, what they're holding. Everybody's got their own iconography, and just by looking at an image, you can tell who it is. And now somehow, oh my goodness, what? How? Run! Run! Meeting them in this way in a video game kind of continues this history of reinterpreting heroes on stage, in books, in prints. He just killed me. Yeah. I think Takeda Shingen would be quite disappointed with me. I think Takeda Shingen would expect more from me, and even though I'm doing my best, I think Takeda Shingen would look at me with disgust. Just like the real Tokugawa Ieyasu, who suffered a devastating defeat to Takeda Shingen and barely escaped to Hamamatsu Castle with his life, I am retreating to the same castle in shame. But here we get a moment to enjoy the beauty of Japan and the forests around the cities and in the mountains. And the mountains were a really interesting place because that's where a lot of the Yamabushi, or warrior monks, lived, and they were a huge problem for cities. So warrior monks were in the hills outside Kyoto, and they would come down. So these beautiful places were also great hiding spots for military forces. Oh, look at this beautiful view of Hamamatsu Castle. Look at those huge ramparts. Think about all of the quarried stone. How much would that take? These steep walls make it harder for attackers to scale, but also it makes it easier for defenders to shoot down at any angle. And what's interesting about these castles is that they would have lived... I'm swimming now. Oh no, I'm not. I'm dead now. So what's interesting about these castles are that people didn't really live in the castles. There were palaces in the grounds. And so castles were really spaces for military councils, storehouses, and they would have been used a lot in sieges and as places to create high ground for shooting arrows and guns. And here we are at Hamamatsu Castle, a Tokugawa stronghold that saw many major battles during the Sengoku period. It is very similar to how an actual castle is structured and the strategic formation of a castle. It's filled with right angles. So it's very hard to attack around a corner, but it's much easier to defend. And at the moment on the screen, you can see an incredible crest. This is the Tokugawa crest. And once the Tokugawa took control in the Edo period, they created a lot of decrees about castle building. In each province or domain, each daimyo or leader of the domain was only allowed one castle. So there was a lot of destructions of castles and a lot of buildings of castles. Because of the period of huge infighting in Japan, the Tokugawa were really reluctant to go back to a period of instability. So in order to control all the different fighting clans who were ruling Japan, they made a lot of decrees about their conduct and about how they should rule their own lands. This control lasted for over 250 years, until there was a rising interest from foreign powers to expand Japanese trading opportunities. Okay, so I am now in the Bakumatsu period, so this is after the Edo period. We are looking at a heavily stylized version of Kyoto. The fall of the shogunate happens in 1868, and this is set in 1864 during that turbulent period. The arrival of Commodore Matthew Perry in 1853 began a period of internal tensions within Japan, where daimyo and samurai who wanted to change some of the Tokugawa foreign policies were empowered to instigate a different regime. And during this time, Europeans and Americans are entering into Japan. And one of those Europeans was Thomas Glover, who is a British merchant who sold guns and weapons to some of the rebellious factions.
Can I interest you in a trade?
Guns were used extensively in early battles to unify Japan, which we'll see later in this video. But during the Tokugawa period, there was no fighting. And so guns, even though they were part of processions, were actually never used. And so gun technology in Japan stayed as if it was in the 16th century. During the Bakumatsu period, we start to have the reintroduction of new ballistic weaponry. And so Thomas Glover is bringing in the game these new technologies to Japan, particularly to Satsuma and Choshu, which are two regions who were trying to change the political landscape of Japan during this time. Here I am using a cannon. That's so cool. Cannon warfare was also brought to Japan, and in the exhibition you will be able to see a wall gun from this period, so a small cannon. As you progress through the game, you unlock new weapons and you can go back in time and defeat the former bosses in new ways. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to defeat Takeda Shingen my way with a gun. But I'm only doing it so that Takeda Shingen can be released from these evil spirits. I've taken some life off Takeda Shingen. That's more than I think I've ever done before. Oh no! Well, now we're on to the next one. Let's see if I'm better at that. And now we're playing Ghost of Tsushima. This game is set during the Mongol invasions of the 13th century, when Japan faced its first foreign threat. So this, to me, seems how I imagine battles from this period to look like. Mounted on horses, arrows flying. One of the things that occurred at the beginning of Japanese battles was the firing of whistling arrows, and that would essentially start or announce a battle. And it's said that the Mongols actually laughed when they heard these whistling arrows and started playing their gongs and drums much louder. So I'm now unmounted and I'm about to attack the Mongols. This period of fighting was unprecedented in Japan. Prior to this, Japanese samurai warriors were predominantly fighting themselves. So it was about land and authority over areas within the Japanese archipelago. However, this is the first time that they are united against a singular enemy. The Kamakura shogunate hear about the Mongols' intention, and so they prepare for this event. They alert many of the warriors around Japan to head to Kyushu. They alert people to create defenses in northern Kyushu, and they are generally working to consolidate a force that will resist whatever the Mongols are going to bring their way. The Mongols invaded Japan twice, first in 1274 and then again in 1281. This was part of the Kublai Khan's mission to control the entire world. So the crux of the game is that as the samurai Jin Sakai, I have to rescue my uncle who has been captured by Khotun Khan, the fictional cousin of the Kublai Khan and grandson of Genghis Khan. Ooh, stand off. So one of the things about Ghost of Tsushima is it's very much driven by the ideas of a moralistic warrior code. Though we enjoy this romanticization of the past, and it has become incredibly prevalent, this isn't necessarily historically accurate. Samurai were incredibly pragmatic, and fighting is really about survival and creating a legacy. You're not necessarily motivated by a conduct. It is about victory. This game, which is set in the 13th century, predates any writings on warrior etiquette that have been interpreted as this kind of moral code. A lot of the writings that we have are made by individuals and were not published widely. So it's very unlikely that a moralistic code existed across all of Japan. Samurai really fantasized about their own history, particularly during peacetime. They really emphasize their military history. These stories of early warriors, they become ways for samurai to continue their social authority. In fact, these writings that we do have are actually only written in the Edo period, a time of peace, when they are reflecting on legendary heroics of this earlier time period. So the people who are writing have never actually faced battle.
Do you think samurai would like how they're depicted in these games?
Do you know, I really do. I think that there would be a real enjoyment of it. I also think other classes within Japan would really enjoy playing these games, particularly people who go to kabuki theatre. When you think about all of the kabuki prints, people wanted to collect their favourite actor playing their favourite role. So I wouldn't doubt for a minute that people would love to play these games. I feel like that was quite good for me. I know I've died, but oh, there's my uncle. Looking pretty disappointed in me. One of the sources that we have from the actual battles that occurred during the Mongol invasions include a description of a samurai managing to fire an arrow into the face of the Mongol general who was leading the forces. So that slash across the face might be a reference to this event. One of the great things about Ghost of Tsushima is it is set in a period that is rather underused, I feel, for such an exciting historical moment. And this is a time when samurai are fighting on horseback. And so choosing your horse and looking after your horse and mastering horsemanship is a key part of samurai identity. Samurai were incredibly well trained in horse riding. They wouldn't ride into walls like I am doing. From their horses, samurai would use bows and arrows to do much of their fighting. Though we often think of samurai as wielding swords, it is really as mounted archers that they become these dominant warrior figures. So I'm currently being trained in archery, which was a skill that was essential for the samurai. And it remained an essential skill throughout all of their years of fighting. And even during the Edo period, a time of peace, samurai were expected to maintain good archery skills. What have I done?
You shot your sensei in the head.
Stop. Get out of my way. One of the things that the Mongol invasion is known for is for the invention of the kamikaze, or divine wind. When the Mongols attacked in 1274 and 1281, there are accounts of phenomenal weather that interrupts the battles and aids the Japanese in their defeat of their enemy. These winds become known as the kamikaze. In the game of Ghost of Tsushima, you are guided through the game by a wind. So when you're looking for your objective, a wind will blow you in the right direction. And this might be a reference to the kamikaze. Oh, see, crouch. Oh, have I been So, I was just too excited. Oh, I've got to get to the white grasses, do I? We have a hand scroll that chronicles an earlier battle within Japan. The hand scroll is called Gosanen Gunki, and in it you see forces hiding in these long grasses. And the hero of the piece is actually a mounted warrior who notices that geese are flying away from these rushes. Our hero is so smart and is aware that they are about to be ambushed from people hiding in these grasses. So now the game takes us down a road of stealth where we are trying to free our uncle. So I've got to sneak in and I've got to start to assassinate all of these people. Even though there wasn't a cohesive warrior code, samurai were very concerned with their own morals and actions. Buddhism played a big part in day-to-day life in Japan, and death and killing were topics of huge contention. So the moral consequences of battle were incredibly important. Though there wasn't a warrior code, there was certainly an awareness of their actions within a wider consequence. I don't know that many stories of samurai operating as individuals. Normally they are operating within ranks and battalions, and it's very unusual for an individual samurai to take matters into their own hands. But having said that, on the battlefield, even when you're within your group, you are kind of on your own. One of the things that you had to do was to prove your valor and bravery, and you did that by collecting heads of people that you had killed. And there are examples of people during the Mongol invasions trying to decapitate as many enemies as possible once they are dead in order to secure rewards. One of the famous hand scrolls that we have that depicts the Mongol invasions comes from this motivation to receive rewards for valiant deeds. So you can tell immediately that these people are Mongols just by the types of weapons that they're holding, the types of armor that they're wearing. The type of armor that I'm wearing is really beautifully articulated. You've got this really wide shoulder guard, which is instead of a shield. So that's what you would use to deflect yourself from the arrows. This suit of armor looks like it's a dormaru armor, which develops after the armor used for mounted archery. And this has a hinge at the side, and so it can be put on by oneself. A lot of Japanese armor was designed to close at the back, and you would need an assistant to help you put your armor on. So it makes a lot of sense that Jin, who is a lone warrior, has a suit of armor that can be put on by himself. Though many people may perceive sneaking around as being against the samurai code, we actually have many examples of this happening. And actually in the Mongol invasions, the fortifications in northern Kyushu had been increased, and a lot of the Japanese warriors were happy to remain in their entrenchments rather than going into open battle. So remaining in secure spaces was normal samurai conduct. So in this game, honor is an integral part of the plot. And here my uncle contests my sneaky behaviour to save him. One of the interesting things about the Mongol invasions is it really had a transformative effect on Japanese society at the time. Because the Bakufu government were encouraging warriors to go to Kyushu to defend the borders of Japan, people actually start to disobey the senior members of their own family. They go in search of valor, of fame. So it really impacted the structure of family ties at that time. And there were complaints to the warrior government about how they were conducting this program to get warriors to go down to Kyushu. This is a really overt use of this idea of honor. And though it may not have been as historically present as presented in this game, it is a really nice driver of the plot. And it's a really nice way to see a time in Japanese history that is not presented as often enough. And now let's have a look at a different era of samurai history that deals with the fallout from the end of the Kamakura government. Now we're playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, set during the 1500s when Oda Nobunaga is trying to unify Japan. We've got the opening scene where we meet one of our heroes, Yasuke, who is a historical figure, the first documented African who came to Japan.
For the Baruch, you are expected to appear before Lord Nobunaga today.
Akechi Mitsuhide is a very, very important character, as we will come to find out. The arrival of the Portuguese in 1543 is a real turning point for Japanese history because they bring an important weapon to Japan, firearms, matchlock firearms. Even though, I've just noticed a very famous helmet, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who will succeed Oda Nobunaga. So here we see Nobunaga arriving, and this feels very accurate. During processions of elite samurai, you were meant to bow and look at the ground. So this feels very respectful and accurate. Oh, and Nobunaga has killed a boar, hunting was very important in samurai life. It really was a display of your potential as a fighter on the battlefield. Often before battle, particularly with falconry, there would be hunts. And if they were incredibly successful, it was seen as a good omen of the forthcoming battle.
I would have many questions for this man, if only he understood.
Lord Nobunaga, I do understand you.
And here we are seeing Yasuke's first meeting with Oda Nobunaga. Though documented, a lot of the history about Yasuke is fragmentary, and there are many aspects of Yasuke's life that we do not know about. We know that the Portuguese brought Yasuke to Japan, and when Oda Nobunaga saw Yasuke, was amazed by this figure and asked if Yasuke could join his group of retainers.
Your servant stays. He may yet prove useful to me.
One of the interesting things about a lot of these games is their attention to detail in armour. So in Assassin's Creed, we can really see the kind of armour of that period. It's very different from early armour. You can see that the shoulder guards have shrunk. So this is really designed for mobility. During the 1500s, we start to have hand-to-hand combat become much more prevalent. Infantry play a much larger role in warfare rather than cavalry. So you have these adaptations of armor. The armor that Yasuke is wearing is really designed for mobility. It's lightweight. And as you can see, Yasuke's got 2 swords. And that is really key for a samurai identity. So these 2 swords, one is longer, which is a katana, and one is shorter, and it's called a wakizashi. And so a katana will really be used for fighting your opponents. And a wakizashi is part of your status as a samurai. No other class of people are allowed to carry 2 swords. Guns had entered into Japan through China originally, but these were very simple weapons, and it's only with the Portuguese in 1543 that we have the arrival of the matchlock gun, and that really defined warfare for the rest of the century. Initially, firearms were quite cumbersome, but over the course of the 1500s... Sorry, I've just brutally stabbed somebody here. So over the course of the 1500s, the Japanese developed various techniques to make firearm warfare much more effective. One of the problems with them initially was how slow they were to reload. There are some amazing statistics about how many arrows an archer could fire in the time that it took for somebody to reload a matchlock gun, and it's something like 15 to 20, which is a crazy amount. They essentially developed cartridges. They would be pre-made and attached to a strap around one's chest or kept in a little pouch, and they would enable faster reloading of these matchlock guns, and they became a key weapon for many battles. Often what would happen is there would be 3 lines of gunners in a lineup for a battle, and as one shot they would duck down to reload, the next one would fire across, and this is really how battle warfare changed during the 1500s. And you can even see this reflected in armor, where the Japanese start to develop bulletproof metal cuirasses.
This is the way forward.
The adoption of guns really varied from domain to domain, with different warlords having different access to them. Daimyos in the south, who traded more with these foreign entities such as the Portuguese, were fast adopters of these kinds of weapons.
I bring items across the 4 seas.
And by the 1590s, people say that more guns are being made in Japan than anywhere else in the world, and that gun technology was really developing incredibly quickly. One of the things you've got to remember is that when guns arrived in Japan, Japanese craftspeople were already making very advanced metal weaponry. And so it didn't take much for the Japanese to rearrange their supply chain in order for their metal workers to be able to make guns quickly.
He comes. Oda Nobunaga.
Oda Nobunaga was incredibly tactical and was very good at eliminating enemies who were preventing a unification of Japan. This included warrior monks who surrounded Kyoto, as well as attacking the Iga province. Now, the Iga province was an area where self-governed mercenary warriors were based.
Iga does not know surrender.
And these warriors were known for their ferocity in battle. This is really where we have this blurring of ninja and shinobi, but interestingly, academics are actually debating whether they even existed. So we're now playing as Nioh, who is a shinobi, and we are on a stealthy mission.
Would they run around on rooftops like this?
No, I don't think so. This kind of sneaking around on roofs isn't particularly common, and we know that when the Tokugawa asserted their peacetime authority from the 1600s, we don't have this kind of spying at all. So I don't think that this kind of behavior is particularly realistic. But it's so fun. I'm trying to win and I'm really enjoying myself. A lot of what happens with samurai, even historically, it is about having fun. You know, when you go and watch kabuki, it's about these incredible acts of bravery and heroism that are adapted. Oh God, I didn't realize there were more of them. Oh no. One of the things that I really like about Assassin's Creed Shadows is the cultural aspects of samurai conduct. Here, even though Nioh is not a samurai, we are going to meet with Senno Rikyu, the most renowned tea master in all of Japanese history, and accrues huge amounts of independent power and authority within Japan. Senno Rikyu will go on to be a close confidant of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the second unifier of Japan. And this is really interesting because Senno Rikyu is somebody who's cultivating people's intellectual spirits. This is so exciting for me. Like, when I think of things that I would love to experience if I could go back in time, meeting Senno Rikyu would be mind-blowing. The culture contained within this one figure is just phenomenal.
Let's begin with basic etiquette. Rank and title are put aside.
This is essentially true. Senno Rikyu develops tea houses with incredibly small doors. You have to take off your sword to enter. And when you think that the sword is really a status symbol of the samurai, the hierarchies of status are obscured. And you enter into this kind of liminal space where you can have freer conversations and talk about allegiances, talk about cultural activities, and you're really there as intellectual equals.
It is customary to give a gift at the end of the ceremony.
High-value teawares, rare teawares, were often given as gifts to secure allegiances. These, to me, all look incredible, and they all have very different ideas, concepts, heritages connected with them. I think this Chinese-style blue and white ceramic would be the most interesting gift to give. Chinese arts were incredibly revered. You wanted to be associated with China. It was sort of seen as like a cutting-edge culture. And many of the most elite rooms in palaces were decorated with references to Chinese legends, Chinese-style paintings. And so I think that this gold-trimmed teapot would probably be the best gift to give.
The teapot with the gold trim.
An excellent choice.
And Senno Rikyu is happy with my choice, an excellent choice. I agree. Personally, I think I would like the more rustic-looking tea jar. And now I'm seeing if I can remember what Senno Rikyu has taught me. This is very high stakes culture. So even though a bowl is circular, there is always a front and a back of a bowl. So you turn the bowl so your guests and your host will see the most beautiful side at the most appropriate moment. Yeah, I think if you did the tea ceremony wrong, there would be judgment about it. I don't know if you would be invited back. And actually, to be in the room with certain people gives you access to power and resources. So mastering the tea ceremony is just as important as mastering military tactics. So now we're sharing our gifts. So there's a lovely painting. Here's a beautiful No mask, which is a type of historic Japanese theatre. As a guest, you have to have the cultural knowledge to understand all the references that are being put before you.
A thoughtful gift.
Don't you think the gold clashes with its simple elegance?
I think that this Chinese teapot is the most elite gift at the time, but these other guests were a bit snooty about it. I am quite surprised about this, but at least my host appreciated the gift. So here I am going to meet with Akechi Mitsuhide to talk about assassinating Oda Nobunaga.
Will you help me kill him?
Yes.
This is based on historical events, though I'm not sure about any shinobi or ninja being involved.
We will begin our attack once you are inside the temple.
I am ready.
So I am now approaching Honnō-ji Temple. So this is the site where in 1582 Oda Nobunaga dies very unexpectedly. Oda Nobunaga had been staying in this temple, and suddenly one of his closest allies, Akechi Mitsuhide, attacks. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, we attack the temple alone. In reality, Akechi Mitsuhide's forces surround Honnō-ji Temple and attack Oda Nobunaga from all sides. There is no escape.
That impotent traitor! Yasuke, go to the gate. Hold it as long as you can.
It's believed that Yasuke, who was a retainer of Nobunaga, was also in attendance.
I am eager.
Okay, so I'm trying to defeat Oda Nobunaga, and I'm just rolling over these tatami mats as the temple. Oh, that was good, that was good. No, I'm doing so well. I'm now on fire. This is the furthest I've ever gone. I can't believe this. Oh, wow. So in this game, we now see Oda Nobunaga accept that there is no way out of Honnō-ji Temple.
I cannot rule after such a failure.
And he commits ritual suicide. Ritual suicide, or seppuku, developed over a long period of time of Japanese history. I think it's interesting that people assume that seppuku happened a lot more than it actually did. It's more likely that you would die on the battlefield. In fact, it's during peacetime that there's actually a resurgence of seppuku to prove some kind of honourable identity. However, it was such a problem that the Tokugawa actually made performing seppuku illegal, and it's reserved as a punishment for high-ranking samurai. There are two main ways to perform ritual suicide. One is to place a sword in your mouth and fall off your horse. That's one of the early ways. And another one is to perform harakiri, or the cutting of the stomach. And this is where you disembowel yourself. Behind you would be an attendant who would behead you. Over time, this became more and more ritualized, and you would have a sword placed in front of you, and as you knelt down and reached to pick up the sword, your attendant behind you would behead you before you even placed the dagger into your stomach. And there are examples where the sword in front of you was actually just a fan, and so it became a symbolic sword. The moment you reached for that, the sword would come down and behead you. It's believed that his body was burnt because no body has ever been found.
The head is unsalvageable. Even in death, he mocks me.
Akechi Mitsuhide was looking for it in order to kind of embarrass Nobunaga and use it as a rallying cry to increase his power. And then Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who was another ally of Nobunaga, who ended up securing power in the fallout of this event, looked for it in order to find a body for appropriate burial.
Send it back to wherever he belongs.
There aren't any records of what happened to Yasuke after Nobunaga dies. But in this game, we're in control of Yasuke's destiny.
One more step, stranger, and you die!
I offer you the same choice.
Assassin's Creed Shadows is set in one of the most exciting times of Japanese military history. You get to go through so many famous events, meet with famous people, and what I love about it is that there's an emphasis on cultural development as well as the military side of things. But how did the samurai actually run a domain during this chaotic period in history? Now we're going to play a really exciting game called Nobunaga's Ambition, and what's exciting about it is it's the longest running samurai video game in history. It began in the 1980s, and this iteration was released in 2022. This game is probably the most realistic. You are a daimyo and you have to run your domain, and your goal is to unify Japan. This symbol is the Oda family, famously for Oda Nobunaga. So let's play as Oda Nobuhide. So as you can see here, I now can assign a retainer to a castle.
I'm truly grateful.
So now what I'm going to try and do is develop my territory, and this will increase my chances of commercial and military success. And I think an irrigation canal is always important. So let's build one of them here. What I'm doing now might not actually look like what you think a samurai would be doing. You'd think they'd be off at war, battling, fighting to the death. But this is a big part of samurai conduct. They are administrators of their domains, and so they are trying to develop their territories to ensure they're working to maintain their economy and their prestige. What's important to do is try and level people up. So when guns arrive, you have to have a certain amount of retainers who are progressive in their political affiliation in order to trade with the Portuguese traders to allow guns into your territory. I've got enough money and resources now to invade the neighboring territories. Battle ready, let's go. Okay, so I'm now in battle mode, and what I really love about this game is how they enact battles. Instead of fighting as an individual, you are the commander of your battalions. So in this example, I have 2 units, and I've got to secure certain points on the terrain in order to give myself an advantage of victory. So I'm going to play it quite boldly. And I'm going to leave my base camp unguarded, and I'm sending one of my groups of soldiers to attack their smaller battalion. So you can see we're celebrating first blood, and when you zoom in, you can really see the different types of soldiers. So samurai just means warrior, and in Japan of this era, they probably wouldn't have even used the term samurai. They'd probably use the word bushi or musha or mononofu, and within samurai, there are all these different ranks. It's not just a single entity. You have the ashigaru at the bottom, who are foot soldiers, you have your infantry, you have your generals, and you have your cavalry, and they're all at different levels. This has been an easy battle for me. Even though I just thrashed my opponent, many samurai battles didn't end in a decisive victory. And a lot of battles were negotiated at the edges of the battle.
As proof of his allegiance, Toshimasa arranged for his daughter Kicho to marry Nobuhide's eldest son, Nobunaga.
So one of the things that you can do to improve your relationships with surrounding clans is to form alliances. And in this game, samurai women play an important role because through marriage, they can make these connections. And that is very similar to what happened in real life. And it was incredibly important to create alliances because it was such a tumultuous time in Japanese history.
We've toppled their castle.
And as you can see, I have just taken over another castle town. So the road to unification under the Oda has begun.
We've caught the enemy officer.
And I can choose now to employ, execute, or release anybody that I've captured. So this is another example of the kinds of consequences of war. This person looks like they'll be quite loyal to me, so I'm going to employ them.
My answer is no.
Oh, but they said no.
Kill them.
Okay. Under advice of my director, I'm going to execute this figure.
I have no regrets.
Sometimes high-ranking samurai who were defeated in battle like this would have performed ritual suicide.
Absolutely not.
It was considered preferable to being captured because you had more agency over your own life and body. You can see now that the surrounding area next to me has gone red. that's because they don't like me anymore. So they're scared of me and they are my enemy. As you start to take over more of Japan, you have uprisings, you have to deal with different weather events such as flooding or earthquakes or famine, and you have to make sure that your people within your domain are happy and able to support this expansion. As you develop, other clans are expanding, and so they're getting just as powerful as you, and so you start to have to fight more and more well-equipped and larger enemies. And so the battles get far more complex and decisive. As enemies become stronger, they may actually invade your areas, and you have to fight off sieges of your own castles. So you have to make sure that you are fortifying your own areas. And this, I feel, is very evocative of the real history of the Warring States period. You have to manage your resources, you have to forge alliances, and it is a really intense, complicated game. As we see, there have been countless hours of research and dedication to the details in each game, and each explore different aspects of samurai culture, history, and development. These video games are often romanticized and are anachronistic, but this fits into a long history in Japan of playing with history and fantasy. This is really an extension of books and prints and kabuki theatre in historic Japan, where samurai stories, histories, legends were adapted and played with. You'll be able to see the games that I've played today in the Samurai exhibition, as well as other contemporary media that encapsulate how we play with the samurai image today. Alongside that, you'll see real-world objects that have inspired details that are in these games, such as the armour, weapons, and arts of the samurai. Click the link here to book tickets, and I hope to see you there.